I get it, you're about to spend a solid chunk of budget on a video conferencing bar, and you're wondering if the Poly Studio X50 will actually make those weekly team huddles feel smoother, or if you'll end up wrestling with cables and glitchy audio later. I was in the same spot last month, comparing a few all-in-one solutions for our new 12-person conference room, and I dug through specs, watched a handful of demo videos, and even asked a couple of IT folks what they hit with when they rolled out similar gear. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. What I found is that the Studio X50 is built around the idea of just plug it in and go, which sounds perfect on paper, but gets a lot more nuanced once you start mapping it onto a real office layout. The bar itself is a single, sleek piece that mounts under a wall or sits on a table, and it bundles a 4K camera, beamforming microphones, and a full duplex speaker array into one enclosure. That's a big win if you hate juggling a separate webcam, a speakerphone, and a mic stand. The touch controller, the TC8, adds a quick way to join a meeting, adjust volume, or switch between Zoom, Teams, and other platforms without needing a laptop on the table. First-time setup is pretty straightforward. You run a single HDMI cable to your display, a USB-C for power, and an Ethernet plug for the network. The box does a self-check. The screen on the controller lights up, and you can run the Poly Studio app on a phone to finish the wizard. For a team that doesn't have a dedicated AV tech, that simplicity translates into less downtime. In our pilot, the whole process took under 20 minutes, and we were able to start a live Teams call right after the bar powered up. But the simple label hides a couple of hidden trade-offs. The X50's 4K sensor is impressive when you're sitting close, people look sharp, and the wide field of view, about 120 degrees, captures a full table without needing to tilt the camera. However, once you move beyond a medium-sized room, say a 20-person space with a long rectangular table, the corners start to feel a bit squeezed. The camera can't pan or zoom, so you either end up with a lot of empty space on the screen, or you have to ask participants to lean toward the center. If your room is larger than about 15 feet across, you might want a system with motorized optics or an additional camera. Audio is where the Studio X50 really shows its practical strength. The built-in mics are designed to pick up voices from anywhere within that same 120-degree cone, and the beamforming algorithm does a decent job of minimizing background chatter from the hallway. During a test call with 4 people spread across the room, the farthest speakers still sounded clear, and there was no echo, even though we were using the same speakers for playback. The downside is that the mic array is optimized for a single, flat table. If you have a U-shaped setup or people sitting on the far side of a divider, you'll notice a dip in volume that the system can't compensate for. In those scenarios, a separate boundary mic placed closer to the participants could fill the gap, but that adds complexity and cost. One of the things I appreciated after a week of daily use was the meeting customization feature. Through the Poly Studio app, you can create profiles that automatically set the preferred video platform, adjust the microphone sensitivity, and even toggle a privacy mode that disables the camera when you're not in a call. For offices that switch between client presentations on Zoom and internal stand-ups on Teams, that one-tap switch saved us a lot of fumbling with settings. It's not a revolutionary feature, but the fact that it's baked into the hardware rather than an external software layer makes it feel more reliable. Now, who should actually consider buying this? If you run a medium-sized meeting room, roughly 812 people, want a clean-look setup without a rack of gear, and need to support both Teams and Zoom out of the box, the X50 is a solid match. It shines for businesses that value a quick, low-maintenance install and don't want to manage separate webcams, speakerphones, and cables. Schools or training centers that host frequent hybrid classes can also benefit from the built-in 4K video, because the clarity makes it easier for remote students to read whiteboards. On the flip side, if you have a larger boardroom, a conference space that frequently changes layout, or a need for advanced video features like auto-tracking or multi-camera switching, you'll likely hit the limits of this bar. Also, if your organization already has an existing AV infrastructure and is comfortable managing separate components, you might get better ROI by buying a dedicated camera and a higher-end speaker system that can be tailored to the room's acoustics. Lastly, the price point sits in the mid-range for all-in-one bars. If you're on a very tight budget, a basic USB speakerphone and a separate webcam could achieve functional parity.